Hello, I am William Bragg, founder and president of Kensington Community Television. I'm standing here outside the Friends Arch Street Meeting House, located at 4th and Arch, right here in the city of Philadelphia. In an effort to bring you the very best in quality programming from a Christian perspective, KCTV is launching a new series of vignettes, which I have entitled The Quaker City Minute. In kind to the nostalgic FYI segments that were produced by Hal Linden way back in yesteryear, the Quaker City Minute will be exploring timely euphemisms, quips, and anecdotes of the Quaker following in short, one-minute venues that will actually be hosted by real present-day Quakers. So sit back and relax, and put on your thinking caps, and join me as together we search out the seeds that grew a nation.
In the book of Revelations, this is the letter to the Church of Philadelphia. I've set before thee an open door which no one can shut.
Yeah.
I like that.
Lady! This is Dennis Payne for Kensington Community Television. I'm sitting here with Tricia Shore. We're going to be talking about the seed of a nation. Good morning, Trish.
Good morning, Dennis. The seed of a nation is an idea that William Penn had when there was persecution over in England to start a virgin province, a new town, a new way of dealing with each other on the basis of equality and freedom of religion and government with the consent of the people. William Penn got a big grant of land from the king, Charles, and he named it Pennsylvania.
You're talking about this sitting behind us.
Right, really he wanted to name it Sylvania, but the king himself put Penn in front of it because William Penn's father was the reason why William Penn got all this land, because he was owed money by the king. So when he got all this land, he started to sell it, and he sold little pieces of it to different people in Germany and in all different sects. Persecuted religious communities were able to come here and practice their religions. Philadelphia has beautiful churches, and I think it's because people came here invested in being able to worship as they please, and so they built these communities around their churches. William Penn was around in London at the time of the Great Fire, and so he saw how people were just perished in the streets. So that's why he planned the way he did, in a grid pattern, and with 5 different parks. There's Logan Square, there's Rittenhouse Square, there's Washington Square, there's Franklin, and then the center one where City Hall is now, that was Center Square. So all those places where if anything happened, people would be able to go there. Some open spaces. So it was a lot of things have been still great for us. The freedom of liberty and conscience, and the way the city's set up to know where our ideals have come from, and to be able to ground ourselves in that ideal again. And
what is the difference between Quakers and Puritans?
The Puritans came a little earlier to America than Friends did, and they wanted to create a pure society, which is much different than the variety and diversity that the Friends created. So actually, there were some Quakers who went to Boston to protest how strict they were and how and just that Puritan way, and they were told to leave, and they said don't come back, and they came back.
Wasn't that one lady?
Mary Dyer.
Mary Dyer,
have a picture of her?
Yes, we got
Yep,
it.
and she came and she sat down and she didn't leave, and she got hung. So she was a martyr for liberty of conscience.
Why did they hang her again? Exactly why?
They said because she didn't believe what they wanted to believe. Just like in England, she went against. They didn't want any Quakers in Boston. So they said, if you come back, we'll kill you. And they said she came back. She had 5 kids, and the youngest one was 10, and she just gave it all up, and she's now, she lives on as a martyr and as a symbol of conscience. It's a big difference. The Friends down here, the diversity, the openness, the things like that, and plus the kind of business type thing, real practical down-to-earth thing. So they say that the Friends came to America to do good, and they did very well indeed. We're meek and we're inheriting. Turns out a lot of people had a flair for business, and since they, their prices were their prices, they weren't going to bargain. Everybody felt like they could trust, so they started growing business-wise.
As far as the Friends, from what they first started out here in America to what they now evolved into, where do you see them today? How we recognize what a friend is? What are they doing? What's their let's say, what's their agenda, for lack of a better word? How they promoting, or are they promoting? What's going on with modern day Friends?
Right. Well, there's no evangelism or proselytizing. If you haven't found the Friends and sat there, and you're not going to really hear about them because but their actions speak much louder than their words.
What kind of actions are they doing?
They help with peaceful social actions in different countries.
Global citizen type stuff.
Right, global citizen type stuff, and plus there's the Friends Committee for National Legislation there in Washington, and they lobby Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Friends have always lobbied Congress. They even lobbied Lincoln. There's a very good story about that. They lobbied Lincoln. They made him feel bad.
What was that about?
About slavery.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of activity that way.
Okay.
And from the difference you would see, Quakers don't wear any special clothing anymore. The Amish just, stayed the way they were. They wanted to stay that way, so they're still wearing their clothing that they wore in the 1600s.
Right.
They're still do things the same way they do with their horses and
Right.
their land, and they're a closed community.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know the difference between the Amish and the Friends. The Friends are cosmopolitan. The Friends are,
They're up on times.
Yes, and they're not a separated community anymore.
Right.
There's just some changes in the way that things are run, and people are able to just do their own conscience. So if something comes up and it's a concern, like if something bothers a Quaker, or you can be able to get a lot of support and be able to have a powerful voice if you get the support of the meetings and the yearly meeting. Many of these multinational corporations were started by Quakers way back when they were being so successful.
Friends are not really into symbols and badges of recognitions of any sort like that, but a couple American symbols that were donated from the Friends to the American people. What exactly is the history?
Well, a lot of the symbolism that quintessentially American, the American flag and the Liberty Bell,
Right.
were Quakers. The Liberty Bell was cast for the 50th year to commemorate William Penn's Charter of Privileges, to proclaim liberty throughout the land and all the inhabitants thereof, and that was liberty of conscience, because William Penn was thrown in jail in England for conscience sake, and he had a tough time when he was growing up, as an activist and as a politician. So he wanted to make a place where people would have freedom of religion. So the Liberty Bell was actually cast way before the American War for Independence, and the American flag was sewn by a Quaker woman. Betsy Ross was a Quaker, but she was a fighting Quaker. Many Quakers didn't want to be involved in the American Revolution because war is not the answer. But some other Quakers really felt that there was a time and a place, and now this was it, and so they started the Fighting Quakers. The Free Quaker Meeting House is just right one block up the street, and she met there. She was one of the first members, and she was the last member.
That's Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross. She had her own business. She had bunch of daughters. She was married 3 times.
Who came up with that design? Her herself, or
yes,
was it
she had, because the State House was right down the street.
Right.
She was very close, so they walked over. I think a delegation, I think even including George Washington, walked over and talked about designs. And she said, "Look, I can make a star, like a 5-pointed star with one clip." And she folded up the cloth. She clipped it, and it was a star. So that's how they started that. Right here, land is a graveyard, and they've got a lot of people, unmarked graves.
This is 4th and Arch.
Yes, we're on 4th and Arch Street, and ironically, the first Marine Commandant is buried here. I know the Marines keep wanting to come and shoot off 21-gun salutes, but the Quakers say no.
Oh.
They say the flowers are fine, but not the 21-gun salute. All these things just testify to the simplicity and the trust in the inner good, innate part of us that is compassion, that knows the right thing to do.
Is there by chance an interesting little story that you would like to say about on the subject that we've been talking on?
Yes, well, there was a activist from way back. His name was Benjamin Lay, and he fought against slavery his whole life. And he would do things. He was a hunchback. He was 4 feet tall. Everybody knew what he looked like. He was very famous in Philadelphia, and he would make the Friends feel bad. The Friends that still kept slaves. In one meeting, he had a Bible and he had filled it with like a bubble full of blood, and he stabbed the Bible and the blood went all over everyone else. He sat right out here in front of the yearly meeting and stuck his foot in the snow. And everyone's like, Benjamin, come on in, Benjamin. He's like, no, as long as slaves are suffering, I'm going to suffer too. And he would, and they, you know, they worked with him, and they eventually started supporting abolition of slavery. But I mean, that's how it happened. It's not like Friends are great or anything, but there's usually one person in there, in any group, that's going to fight for what's right. And the thing about Friends is that that person is listened to. And that's the only difference, is that that person is listened to and that person is maybe given some consideration, and everybody has to kind of think about it. And if it's true or not, then that's when this decisions get
So the
made.
individual actually has a say within the congregation.
Yes, it all comes from the individual, which is very important, but it's then within the community, that's when things start to happen. So it's not individualism versus communitarianism.
No, they're supposed to be
it's
one and
one
the
and the
same.
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one inside the other, because you can't be an individual all
In a
alone
village.
in anything. And if you, even if you do and build up the whole world, it wouldn't be enough. But if you you know, were in a community of caring people who are willing to take what you have to give,
Right.
and willing to hear the real truth, then you're able to make a change. Then you're being empowered, even if you know you're not exactly you're still listened to and empowered.
What suggestions you have for future vignettes down the road for us?
Oh, there's so many great stories that can help people to understand the city that they're living in. I mean, it's not just their friend's religion, it's just the city was a Quaker city,
Right.
which was known as that. So I think the more people know about the buildings they walk by, about what the kind of people that lived here before, the story, behind the history, I think the better people are going to feel about where they are. But they're going to feel better about Philadelphia, and they're going to feel more empowered about things they can do in our time.
Isn't there other ways that people can find out more information about the Friends, Quakers? I mean, you just mentioned books that you personally research. Is that the best way to find out about the Friends? Or is there, what other ways?
There's something called the Quaker Information Center on 15th and Cherry, and they have a lot of pamphlets and books, and they're online too.
They are online
Yeah,
as well?
and a lot of great books and literature that I had to read in book form are now online. But like I said, just to walk the city, to research the, just being in this area, this square mile, there's so much history that can be inspiring for today, but that also can give us a sense of who we are, where we came from, what we're capable of, and what's happened since then. So, it's a nice way, coming down to Old City, walking around, if you haven't been to,
I get lost in Old City. The only place I can get lost is in Old City, and I only get lost in history.
Yes, there you go.
Not in
come get
landmass.
lost in history.
Not in landmass. I can't get lost that way. But as far as the history, it's like my mind just gets so bewildered when I walk around it, and I literally see everything you're saying, and I keep thinking, that symbol, where did that symbol come from? And then I find out later on, for growing up as a kid, I didn't know that the Liberty Bell on the flag was Quaker, not until I got in my early 20s. So yes, go take a tour around old Philadelphia.
Stay curious.
Yes.
There's clues everywhere, and there's a lot of information out there, but you have to kind of dig for it. So
Yes,
you have to be a bit of a detective, because there's a certain story that's popular. It's the one everybody likes.
Well, that's what I was referring to. All information is not on Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so coming down and walking the bricks, that's what I think. Walking
Pray
the
and
bricks.
walk.
Yeah, pray and walk around, and you'll see, what it means. But
As far as William Penn goes, do you believe he was a friend activist or an activist friend?
I think those are just one of the same thing. It's like you pray and you wonder and you worship, and then you go out and you do things. I think matching worship and action is the best way. It's like putting one foot in front of the other, and all like breathing in and out. Without, if you keep just being inspired, you could like in a being puffy, all puffed up with yourself. But that's why you have to give it out. That's why you have to keep transmitting it. So just keep the living waters going, or else they're going to get stagnant. So I think William Penn's his courage and his sacrifice for what he did for Pennsylvania, what he did for civil liberties and religious liberty is just wonderful. And I think, you know, if he just stayed in his castle with his dad, we would have not even been here. So I think being an activist doesn't seem like maybe a great idea during your lifetime when you have to deal with all of the consequences. You know, he lost all of his money, and he lost a lot of the standing, and he spent time in jail. But those things were valuable to us. So that's why I think seeing the big picture, you know, even beyond maybe even your own lifetime, like how some people plant a tree, even if they're never going to see it, those kind of impulses are important for us and posterity.
That famous Benjamin Franklin statement where you trade off or whatever, you know the correct statement. Okay, how do you see that with the Friends?
Trading liberty for security.
Correct.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't get either.
Right.
I think playing it safe and not, you know, going for just to preserve what you have, then you might lose it. But to go and, you know, fulfill your life and really stand for liberty and freedom. It's costly sometimes in this life, but I think it's great. It's the only way to live, because otherwise we're kind of like ghosts. If we're not really ourselves and we don't have liberty of conscience and we're being told what to think and what to do, that's just not what we are as people. And I think that the Friends, the Quaker seed here that was planted so deeply is still bearing fruit in the individuals that are you know, coming up in America today and just showing the world new things. And just I love this country, and I know that things are going to change for the better, but it's only if people start becoming active, and if they start participating in the process, and if they start, you know, agitating for change when you need to. So I get a lot of inspiration and strength from his activism from way back when. If you look up the trial of William Penn, it's quite dramatic what he did. Yeah, so I think it's going to be great for people to learn more about where this city came from, more about what the Friends did and are trying to do, and more about what we could have possibly have been if we had kept to our ideals of freedom and liberty and of conscience. So it's kind of sad to see how things are happening in these days. You know, with people getting busted for protesting and things. I think that it's just totally in the same spirit as the first Friends who got thrown in jail.
Fighting against the king?
Yeah. So we have you know, we have big enemies, we have big problems, but we also have a big hearts and big, you know, strength to be able to do this. If we only knew our own power. It's like that's, you know, the city's almost like a beautiful woman that doesn't know that she's beautiful. All she can see is her flaws. No, all she can see is her flaws and the pockmarks. But there's just such beauty here that I think we need to translate that better. Even knowing what that is, because that wasn't supposed to be just a small thing. It was supposed to be universal. They thought the whole country was going to go Quaker. But
from a friend, with a friend, to a bunch of friends, this is Dennis Payne with Kensington Community Television, sitting with Tricia Short in the Quaker Meeting House at 4th and Arch Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Good evening. That's a cut.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.